Feeling overwhelmed by life's challenges and seeking healing? Welcome to Your Love Talk, a safe haven where you'll discover effective strategies to overcome obstacles. Join Dr. Beverly Booth as she explores inspiring tales of resilience from individuals who have triumphed over adversity, emerging stronger and more fulfilled. Unleash your inner strength and embark on a journey of transformation. Now, here's your host, Dr. Beverly.
Hello there. Welcome to Your Love Talk. I am so pleased to welcome Wayne and Pat Russell to this podcast episode today. Wayne is an associate minister and Pat is the worship leader of a church in Brampton, Ontario, Canada. Wayne and Pat have been married for 35 years, and they will share the challenges they experienced individually and as a couple, and the strategies they use to overcome them together. They will talk about the importance of honoring their commitment to each other and their ability to practice selflessness in their relationship. Their words will be an encouragement to those who are fighting to keep their marriage together or those who need hope that marriages can last. Their testimony reminds us that marriages can withstand the test of time even when times are tough. Listen to Pat and Wayne as they talk about their love and commitment to each other.
I am so excited to welcome Wayne and Pat Russell to this episode. Pastors Wayne and Pat Russell. And I wanted to say that, Pat, I have known you since high school. I will not say how long ago that was. And Wayne, we met years ago. And I was able to attend your wedding 35 years ago.
Boom.
We will not say how old we are, but anyway, so I'm so happy to have you both here. I thought it would be amazing to talk about resiliency of marriage. You guys are doing it, and I know you've been through some struggles to even get here, but I wanted to talk about it. So welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We're so delighted to be here.
Great. So you guys are pastors, a church in Brampton, near Brampton, Ontario, yes. Canada.
Yeah.
And I wanted you guys to talk a little bit about that. And I know, Pat, you are an amazing singer and speaker and previous podcast host as well. So let's tell the audience about what you guys do.
Well, let's start at the very beginning, according to the Sound of Music.
There you go. Well, ladies first, you can jump in there first.
We were friends before we got married. Well, we'll get to that. But as a result of, him finding my number and proposing or, taking me out on a date, whatever. The funny thing is when I met Wayne and he said that he was going into ministry, a red flag went up for me. Because there was a couple of things about him that were red flags. For one thing, he was born in the wrong country, and then he had the wrong ambition. Believe it or not, even though we're both Christians and such, but as God would have it, we got married, and yet 35 years feels like yesterday. Mm-hmm. We were youth pastors together, then we went from there into being asked to take over a small congregation, which, on the outside, it's like, okay, that's safe. It's small, but maybe not. Maybe I don't want that small. But what's happened it was about 4 families that we took over the leadership for. Another pastor was moving on and he asked specifically for us. We took over leadership of that. We were living in the East End at the time, so we had to commute to the West, but we served and the congregation grew. It blossomed. We poured into the ministry. We were able to move into a larger building than where we were. And I think because of the seeds that were, planted in us as young people, we were committed. God was faithful. It grew. And a long story short, we're kingdom-minded people. So we did not have the mindset that we wanted to build a big mega church all about us and all by ourselves. We thought, wouldn't it be just better if we came together?
Mhm.
Isn't there somebody else that we could come together to, to build and relationship again? Wayne met another pastor. They forged a relationship, and long story short, God would have it that we merged our congregations together, which is very unheard of. We only know of one other church that has done that in the city of Toronto, to our knowledge. But we did that, and people were just completely shocked at it, and shocked that we did it, number one, and shocked, number two, that Wayne, as a senior pastor, would be okay with not being the lead pastor of this merged congregation. But I will tell you, almost 18 years later, we're bigger, better, bolder for the kingdom of God. And
And if I could just add to
Yeah.
that, as we gone through that merge in itself was something that God did.
yeah,
It wasn't something that we had a plan. Sometimes people have plans and they put those plans in motion, they execute the plan, then they all come together. No, this is all God. How that merge happened, we can just say God did it, and the people were blessed. The church was benefited, and the merged congregation grew. And God has been just doing amazing things through that church now. The church is called Peel Pentecostal Tabernacle in Brampton, and some tremendous things have been taking place there. Yeah,
Wonderful. So you are the associate pastor at that church, Wayne?
Mhm.
Okay. And then Patricia, you are
I'm the worship leader.
worship leader. That is
Yeah.
wonderful. It's amazing what God can do when he leads and when you are obedient to whatever it is that he's calling you to do. And I'm glad that the church is growing and it's stronger, and you guys are doing amazing things in ministry together.
Yeah, yeah. Together is key.
No, for sure.
So let's talk about how you guys met years ago.
Wow. Well, that's a story.
You tell it.
Yeah, I was doing my 4th year internship at Revival Time Tabernacle in at Dufferin area, and I actually lived on the church property. There was a weekend that there was a youth convention or something like that taking place, and there were 2 nights, the Friday night and the Saturday night of the particular event, and I still remember the month. It was in November. Back in, I won't even tell you the year, 1986. 1986.
Yeah.
So all I heard was on this Friday night, I just went outside. I was in the church office and I heard a voice rehearsing, practicing. And who is that? And so I came out of the office, went into the sanctuary, and all I noticed was 2 pairs of legs going up on the platform. And I said, okay, there's a nice voice and some nice legs walking up on the platform. And I said, okay, I don't know who this lady is. So the Friday night happened. And then the Saturday night was also taking place. And so she sang during the Saturday night session. So after the meeting on the Saturday night, to make a long story short, her and her friend was there at the end of the service. And I just made a beeline for this lady. And I just started to talk to her, totally ignoring her friend, just talking to her. And
he literally knelt down. We were sitting. He literally knelt down and had an eye-to-eye conversation. And I just went,
Yeah. And so we chatted for a little bit, and then, a little bit known to her, I did my homework and found out her phone number. And 2 weeks later, I phoned her up. And
he didn't ask for my number, Bev, the night that he saw me. But I did leave that event thinking that was a nice guy. Yeah, something about him. And I said to my friend, I have a feeling I'm going to talk to him again. And surprise, my phone rang. It was a Tuesday. I remember my phone rang and it was him. And it was a kind of creepy, weird feeling, because I knew I didn't give him my number, but he did his homework. And any man that will do their homework, you get a check mark.
Well, it's back in the day when you didn't have cell phones either.
We didn't have cell phones.
Oh, that is so true.
Landline. So
you did your homework.
I did my
He did
homework.
his homework. Yeah, I like that.
So what was it about her, Wayne? Was it just the voice, the way she looked, their spirit?
The way she carried herself, always I admired the way she carried herself, the way she spoke. It wasn't brash, things like that. So that really attracted me. The way she looked too. I mean, definitely, I like a good-looking lady, and that was definitely a plus there.
If he liked the legs, girl, he liked the legs. Ain't gonna lie, he liked the legs.
Well, you're tall.
Yeah, there you
You're
go.
very tall.
There you go.
And what was it about Wayne that drew him to you?
There was a strong quietness about him. There was a strength about him in his, I don't want to say aura, but his just presentation was calm. It was calm, it was strong, and it was again, to use his words, it wasn't brash and it wasn't egotistical. It was laid back, but it was enough that there was something fun about him. And I think after, we talked for a few minutes that evening at the church, but when he called me and he asked, we were able to have a sensible conversation. I mean, it felt really good to have a sensible conversation with a guy, even at that time, who you could ask questions. He wasn't dodging the questions. There were similarities. He wasn't dodging. And what was scary about our first conversation was that we found out that we both knew some similar people, but we didn't know each other, knew those people. And at first I thought, oh, come on, there's no way that you know these people, particularly a couple that was like a family that was very close to us. Come to find out that his parents and this couple actually dated when they were teenagers.
Double dated.
They double dated when they were teenagers, and come to find out that the woman used to babysit him and his siblings. Like, that's pretty scary in Jamaica.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So that was really uncanny. But I think the ease of him, there was a fun-loving, but an honesty, balance. There was a balance about his character that I liked.
Wow. Wow. So one of the things that I know is about 40 to 50% of marriages don't make it to 35 years. They don't even make it to 10.
Yep.
So you guys did. And I'm sure it didn't come without challenges.
Nope.
So can you tell the audience about some of the challenges that you guys faced during those years and how you guys got through them?
There's been a number of challenges, trying to establish a family, that's trying to find a job. All those things were just beginnings, whenever you're getting to know somebody, even though you may be from a similar culture, but your family is not the same. So you have to get to know each other. And so working through those challenges of getting to know one another was something that we've all had to do. And we've had to do that as well. But as we came through marriage, it took us a while to have children. We had them about 5 years after. We got married.
It was about 4 years. Yeah. 4 years after,
almost 5 years.
5, yeah.
So dealing with that challenge was something else. And we also dealt with the challenges of health situations in our lives through our marriage. We dealt with, both of us went through cancer. I went through prostate cancer. Pat went through breast cancer twice, actually.
Yeah.
And when you get those initial reports, it's like somebody gives you a gut punch when you hear those things. And I've heard of couples who split up over those things. But God has been able to see us through. And I'm giving you the broad picture of that. He's been able to see us through those health challenges. He's been able to see us through work challenges. He's been able to see us through parenting challenges, raising our kids, on minister salaries and different things like that we have to overcome from time to time.
Yeah.
And so it has been a journey of ups and downs. But through it all, I believe we've learned to be closer, to trust one another. It hasn't always been easy. There's been times we've been upset at one another, mad at one another.
Oh yeah, we've had deep relationship challenges where the relationship could have gone south.
Yeah.
It could have very easily gone south. As a matter of fact, people thought we might have gone south. But I think one of the things that we've always said, even before we got married, one of the important things for us was being honest and being committed, regardless of how painful it was. So there's been times where we've had to be brutally honest, where one could either say, you know what, that's it, I've had enough, or I want to take a leave of absence, let's just separate. But in being honest, we were able to reassure each other that we loved each other and that we were committed. We jokingly say sometimes we're doing seminars or conferences, and I jokingly said that we have literally gone through all of our vows. Every one of our vows have been tested. Finance, sickness, and health. There's days when I've said to him, you know what? I don't like you. Right now, I don't like you, but I love you. And there's that difference between liking and love. I'm committed to you, but I can't handle being in the same room with you right now. So there's and that's
yeah, and that's a key word, that word commitment. That word commitment that says I'm by you no matter what. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you don't always feel it. You don't always have the gushy feelings or whatever. Sometimes, as she said, you don't always like the person, mm-hmm. but you're committed, and that commitment is what supersedes everything.
Yeah,
and brings you through that, and that relationship with God too. That's what
very much so.
That's what brought us through so many storms.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing that. And it's so important what you just said, both of you, what you just said. There are times that you may not like the person in that moment. It's the feelings of being angry, upset about whatever the situation that you're dealing with. Mm-hmm. But underneath it all, you know that you love each other. And there's that commitment to one another that makes you hold on.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That people need to, I think in our society, people are so light in their commitment. Like we're such a disposable society with things, and even many times with relationships. And if a person knows that you are committed to standing with them, sunshine, rain, storm, flood, it gives them something to hold on to. It gives them a reassurance that they're going to make it through. Saying it is one thing, but it will be tested. Mm-hmm. And you have to be prepared for those words and for that commitment to be tested. I don't know if there's anything that we would go through or could go through. And then, 35 is a number. I always say to people, don't get hung up on the number, but ask us about what's happened during that number. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of people are married for a long time, but the quality of their relationship is really not stable or strong.
It's not there.
The
intimacy that needs to be there. Mm-hmm. The connection that needs to be there. Sometimes it's like two people just living in a room. Mm-hmm. You're roommates, but you're not connected. You're not intimate.
And we're not going to lie that there have been seasons in our relationship where we have felt like roommates. But we both have both had to say, I don't want to be your roommate. I want to be your lover. I want to be your friend. What is it? Let's work through this. Even if we have to lock ourselves in the room and deal with this. It's messy, but let's deal with the mess.
Bev said something earlier about 40 or so % of people don't make it to these years. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that we live in a throwaway society. If you don't like your microwave anymore, you throw it out. Or if you don't like your, whatever it is that you don't like, you throw it out. And many people treat marriage the same way, relationships the same way. And again, we've had to come to the point where we say, no, this is a covenant. This is not something that we're just going to throw away. We're going to have to work through it. We're going to have to be real. We're going to have to be raw and deal with some of those things that have affected us, and deal with the things that we've gone through in an honest way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so obviously you both had to have really good communication skills to be able to say, hey, this is what I'm going through. Let's work it through. Let's work it out. How did you get to that place where you guys are communicating effectively and even being in that place of vulnerability to open up and say, this is what's going on inside of me?
A couple of things. One of the things that we've committed to do over the years is to go to marriage seminars. Sometimes people say that, once you get married, why you need marriage seminars? Well, if you buy a car and you don't take it to the garage, for tune-up, after a while, that car is not going to run anymore. So a marriage seminar is like tuning up your car every so often. It keeps it going. And also, we've been doing marriage seminars ourselves. And one of the things that we've done over the years as we've done them is we've also gone through the workshops with people. As we've been giving out the workshops to couples, we've also done them ourselves. Okay, how are you doing in this area? Yes, we're talking to these couples about them, but how are we doing about these things that we're giving to these couples? And so we've gone over the exercises ourselves. And those things, each time we go over them, as we go over them with the couples, it's been renewing, it's been encouraging. And those are some of the things that have been keeping us going throughout the years.
Yeah, we're one of those ones who want to practice what we preach. So we do premarital counseling, and there's exercises that we give the couple. So while they're working on it, we're working on it too. So even if we've done a couple, maybe 2 months before, we do it again. We do the exercises because we want to keep it rich. We've practiced and we failed. Communication is not a one-time thing. You'll never hear us say we've got it down perfect. We don't need to read another book. We don't need to go to another session. You'll never hear us saying that because I am still finding out things about this man. And I'm thinking like, holy Jenkins. And he's still finding things. You know how long it took him to get me to close the cupboard doors because he'd go in the kitchen and it was hitting him in his head. It took a long time. So communication skills practicing, I think you would agree, one of the biggest communication skills we've really had to work through is listening. Because sometimes people think talking is communicating, but listening, clarifying, seeking to understand, is this really what you meant? Did you mean it like this? Like, even if you had to repeat it, honey, I said this, but did you really mean this, because I interpret it to mean this. So
sometimes by the time it comes out, you say, oh, I didn't mean it that way.
Yeah.
You know, and we both reacted to the immediate thing that somebody says, but not realizing that's not how they meant it. And we've had to go back and clarify and give each other patience to be able to understand those things as they go forth.
Yep. I mean, I think it been up to last week, I think. He said something, he says, I didn't mean that. I'm like, but this is what you said. And I the word, but that's not what I meant. I said, okay, pause. What did you mean? Say, I'll take the time and stop. What did you really mean?
Yeah, it does take a lot of patience in communicating. And it's funny whenever I've worked with couples, I always remind them that they have to listen. So when one person is speaking, the other one has to listen, and they have to mirror back. They have to repeat back what they've heard, because oftentimes, as you said, what you've heard, even what the person may have said, may not be exactly what they meant.
Exactly.
And so being able to just slow down is so important. Thank you.
Slowing down part.
Sharing that. So dealing with conflict. So let me hear from you, Pat. So when there is conflict with Wayne, how then do you deal with it? How do you process that?
So I've had to understand who he is. Over the years, I've had to understand his personality. I've had to take the time to really study and understand his background, how he grew up, what was his relationship like. He had a very tight relationship with his dad. He's very close to his mom and dad, but his dad passed away. It was 10 years ago now.
Actually,
over 10 years. But he was very close with his dad, and he has some very similar personality traits with his dad. And I had to really understand how he doesn't respond the same way that I do. So let's just for practical, I can be very expressive. I am an introvert, believe it or not. But I'm very passionate about expression. So sometimes I would be communicating something and he's not reacting or responding with the energy that I want him to. And so I come from a background where my mother's very emotional. She would raise her voice a lot. And you think that by raising your voice, you're getting the point across. And I had to really understand that it's raising my voice is not going to get a better response from him. You're actually making him back up. You're actually pushing him into a corner. So it took me a while to study him and realize and allow him to be himself. Because subconsciously, I was sometimes relating to him the way that I used to relate to my dad. and the way I saw my dad related to. And I remember, I don't know if you remember this, honey, but I remember him saying one day, honey, I'm not your dad. But I knew what he meant. I wasn't treating him like a father, but I had heard my dad kind of dumped on, brash communication to. And I didn't need to be that way with him. So in dealing with conflict, I just steady my role, lower my voice, just be calm and deal with him according to knowledge, based on how I know him. You don't have to yell, you don't have to scream. He's not deaf. And he doesn't like to be yelled at because I'm not getting the best response out of him. So conflict, he can handle. It doesn't matter how strong it is or how bad it is, but just don't shout at him. So I had to study his personality and deal with that.
Wow, that's so important. I don't think we oftentimes realize that we take the way that we interact with our partners is often what we've learned when we were younger, what we've seen growing up, and so being able to study Wade and to understand what makes him trigger is so important.
Yeah.
To deal with conflict. Thank you for that. And Wayne, what about you? How do you deal with conflict with Pat?
I think she said it earlier. One of the key things is to be able to understand the person's personality, to know where they come from, whether you're an introvert, whether you're an extrovert. And part of my understanding of is just knowing how she speaks sometimes and understanding when she speaks. That's just her letting it out there and understanding that. And once I understand that, I don't react. I try not to react to the first thing that comes out of her, because sometimes it ends up changing down the road. She may say something boisterously, and I think that's what she's saying or what she means, but later on, that's just how she was processing by getting it out there. And then I realized that as she'll just reformulate it again and come to a different understanding as she keeps talking it out. So it's that understanding of her personality that's part of it that's been helping, and also understanding that the background, the family background, the dynamics in her family, being able to understand how she related to her father, how she related to her mother, how she related to her brothers, which was a key thing that I learned about understanding how she related to her brothers and how she felt growing up being the only girl. And so as I started to understand some of those things and, being more patient with her, I didn't always get it right, and I'm still learning how to do that. But it's the patience with her in all those areas when conflict comes up. Those are the things that have helped me in dealing with her over the years.
Thank you for sharing that. Again, that word patience keeps coming up.
I know what. I know. It's so true.
So let's go back to some of the techniques that you guys use to foster a healthy relationship. You mentioned, Wayne, that one of the things that you guys do is to go to marriage seminars and obviously learning how to communicate with one another. You guys have talked about. What are some of the other techniques that you guys use to have a healthy marriage?
Yeah. I think right now, just the time that we spend together in prayer, the time that we spend together, having the common spiritual goals are key to the foundations. We don't always bring that up at the beginning, but that's the foundation of the relationship. You can't say that you want to be on the same trajectory, but I send her to church, or I she goes and I don't go. We've had to have those goals where, okay, if we're going to build ourselves spiritually, then we got to go to church together. We have to, try and maintain our devotional lives together. We have to try and maintain those spiritual priorities together. Those are some of the techniques that have helped us over the years spiritually, and prioritizing each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's been something it hasn't been easily brought to bear, because sometimes so many things can take priority, from whether it be sports to TV to things that you like to do can take so much priority. But when you realize that, in order for this relationship to grow, you've got to put it as priority, put it in the right order. So those are some of the things spiritually, and putting things in priority.
Yeah.
Has been a help for me.
I mean, we have a busy life. I mean, life is not dull, but there's 7 days, we all get the same amount of time, Bev. We get 24 hours, we get 7 days, and we call each other on it. If we've been going, but we haven't had lunch together. We haven't had, we're telling these couples to maintain a date night, but we haven't had a date in like a month. What's going on? We can't be hypocrites. So cancel. So we check our schedules, cancel something. Can you delay something? Can you put off? And I've started saying no a lot. So we've started saying, we learn to practice saying, no, you don't have to tell people that it's your wife you have an appointment with, but I've got an appointment. I got an appointment, and we've kept it simple. It doesn't have to be a dinner at a fancy restaurant. It can be breakfast. We're going to go out and grab a coffee, or we're coming home from something. Meet me up here. Let's go grab a coffee together. He used to get criticized a lot when he was working. Just early in our marriage, he would be on the phone, and his guy friends would say, "Who are you talking to?" And he'd say, "It's my wife." And he's like, and they would be like, "Aren't you going to see her at home?" He's like, "Yeah, but I love her and I want to talk to her." So,
Good for you, Wayne.
and they were like, "Ew." We laugh at it now, but I think it was making that a priority, making each other a priority.
No, I mean, a practical example, for instance, we go and we do a chiropractor every 2 weeks. We have an appointment. And so one of the things that we do, you know what? We have to get to the chiropractor at a certain point, and we have to get to work at a certain point. So after chiropractor, why not just grab a coffee together, or a little, and just sit down and have some us time together. And every time we do that, that's been phenomenal. Or just going for a walk, or just sitting down and watching a Korean movie or something, or a Korean.
We're into Korean.
We're into Korean shows.
Oh, you watch it in Korean?
Yeah, we read the subtitles.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Netflix.
Yeah.
Netflix, yes.
But things that will kind of bind us together and bring that intimacy together is what those are things we don't always get it right. And I don't want to stay here and say that we always get everything right. It's a constant battle. It's a constant keeping up those priorities, and we always have to be aware of them, because so many things can come in and take it so fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. And it sounds like you guys really worked on setting boundaries by saying no. The people expected you to, be there for them. If you guys were neglecting each other, then that became your priority, your relationship. And how did you manage that I know you have older children now, but how did you manage that when you had smaller children? Most couples struggle with that when their kids are small.
We struggled. It wasn't, we look back, I do have some regrets that we were not so stern, because we were always giving. We gave a lot. And honestly, I have said to him, I wish I had said no here. I wish we were able to do some other things with the kids when they were young, because now we see a lot of couples who they don't cough to say, no, we can't, because we've got to take the kids here. And we did not, I feel like we didn't have that luxury. Maybe it's a pressure we put on ourselves, because we were doing church life, but we're also people of our word. So if we're saying that, we've got a commitment to X, Y, and Z with our church family, we kind of stick to it. So when the kids were little, we did what we could. We were blessed to have kids that I call them, they were great travelers. They were like, we could leave them with anybody, but they were great travelers. Road trips, going from event to event. Most people would never do what we did, where I had my daughter in a car seat in front of the keyboard while I was leading worship. We had a small congregation, but I didn't have anybody really to leave her with. And she sat in the car. They were in the car seat right by the piano. I think mostly one of them, right?
And that's part of the challenge, in the sense that here we were young kids starting ministry. At the same time, I wasn't full-time in the ministry. So I had to work full-time in another job. So doing the ministry, trying to raise a family, trying to work full-time, trying to maintain a home, and all those things. And so we tried to do the best that we could with what we had at the time. Did we always get it right? No.
But we did.
Yeah.
But we established also before we got married, and I have to give Wayne kudos on this. He always said, the church is not my wife. I have one wife. Because we had seen bad examples. We'd seen examples of what happens when you don't have your priorities in check. And we determined that, he was really good on that. He did, when it came to being at events for the kids.
We
in
got to
school,
their
we
soccer
did
games.
as much. Yeah.
Yeah, as
We
what we
did.
could.
We might have wanted them to be in more activities. So we're better now at giving counsel or suggestion advice to young couples. And one of the things that we just really encourage, because we made it was foundational for us, was to be friends and have a solid relationship before you say I do. See the person in as many contexts as you possibly can. So raising a family was really challenging. I feel like there's more options now for families, but it was challenging. I'm not going to say it was easy.
Yeah. And I totally understand the difficulties of balancing raising children and ministry work, because ministry work can be so demanding. And even being able to say no can be difficult for a lot of ministers when the church is expecting them to, always be there.
Yeah, thankfully, Wayne would often say too, he would not, if they wanted both of us and I was exhausted or I had to do with something, he never said, honey, find a babysitter. You have to be. I can honestly say I did not hear those words where you have to show up or you have to be at this event. I did not hear those words.
No, I didn't want that pressure at all, because I've seen it. I've seen it many times, and the wife is just the pastor's wife, or it could be the other way around. Is so beat out because of the expectations placed on her that sometimes I see, and right now we're even thinking about that, even ministry to pastors' wives now, because so many are suffering in silence. And they're grieving, but they really have no outlet to share with anybody else. And I didn't want my wife in that situation.
That's great. Yeah, actually, I think it was a few years ago, I actually spoke at a conference, and it happened to be quite a few ministers' wives. And they were talking about their pressure and their struggles and how their marriage was not working because the expectations of the church and that they were not a priority. So I'm glad that you guys were able to figure that out.
Yeah. It's very important.
So let's talk a little bit about how you demonstrate love to one another. Who wants to go first on that
You
one?
really want to hear that? You go first.
Oh, Lord. I like to get little treats. So every so often I'll stop and pick up a little treat for her.
Aww.
And whether it's a cookie or whether it's a...
He's a good foot rubber. So I'll just throw my feet on him and say, honey, please just do your job. He's a good foot rubber. I buy him a Snickers. He loves Snickers. That's his Achilles heel. It's a Snickers bar. So if I go into the store and I see Snickers, I'll get him one. Mind you, I mean, we manage our health, but I mean, please, don't sell with the small stuff. The guy likes Snickers, get him a Snicker. So we do little things.
Those little things, though, they add up because they show that you're thinking about the person, that you care for the person. One of the other things that we do is we go for walks together.
Yeah.
We enjoy going for walks.
We like hiking.
We like the hikes, and and that way you can just be side by side, just walking together and sharing together. And
nice. And you're balancing the Snickers and the health.
There you go.
There you go. There you go.
There, I put that Snickers bar in my mouth, and then my legs are going outside and working it off.
Yeah. I make breakfast for him. Most I think I express my love to you, and I make his meals. So I remember when the kids were growing up and they were young, my daughter said, why do you always give daddy the biggest plate? And they're like, why does he always get the best meat? And I said, I saw that demonstrated. And I said, that's just my way of honoring him and just showing him that I love him. I serve his food first. It has nothing to do with this man-woman thing. It's just my way of showing him that I love him. I'd give him the best part. I'd give him the most part. And they'd say, that's not fair. I said, okay. I said, all right, one day you'll get it. It's all right. There's enough food for everybody. But I thought about it afterwards and I said, when you practice something, when you practice doing something, it just kind of gets into your subconscious as a habit. And that's just for me, that's a way of demonstrating love to him. So if I'm making myself a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, I'll say, honey, do you want one? It's almost like second fiddle to me. If I'm doing it for me, he might want one. He very rarely, I think maybe I've spoiled him in that because I think he doesn't hear me making it and assume that I'm gonna, but I just do it naturally because I love him.
Yeah.
I love this guy.
I love to build things. And my dad was a carpenter. So, one of the things to show my love here is to make sure that the home is properly maintained and brought to the place where, it's comfortable for us. So we just moved a year ago. Since we moved, there's just been so many things that we've done. We had to renovate stairs. We had to renovate the basement. Now I'm outside trying to build a shed so that she can park her car in the garage. The garage is full of stuff, so I'm making a shed so I can put the stuff in the shed so that she doesn't have to have her car outside in the winter. So all those things, you go through to show that you love the other person.
Yeah. Thank you. It just shows such thoughtfulness for one another. And yet some of the simple things to just demonstrate love doesn't have to be this big thing, but it's just some of the little things that you mentioned that is just that daily reminder that you're important to me.
Yeah. It is those little things. And people should never, there's a word I'm trying to find, but minimize. Yeah. I find sometimes people minimize those things. Like they might be listening to this and think, like, that's so crazy, a Snicker bar, but it's something that he likes. So if he likes it, get it for him. My husband is very selfless, so he will not buy himself clothes. So the way I show him that I love him is I'll buy his clothes because he's just not going to do it. He's going to put everybody else before himself. You ask him, when last did he buy himself a piece of clothing? He'll tell you. When was it, honey? You can't remember.
Oh, when I went to Ghana.
When you went to Ghana.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's nice. So lessons learned in past 35 years, and I know you've known each other before 35 years, that's just marriage, but what are some of the lessons that you've learned in your relationship with each other?
Oh boy, where do we start? It's some of the lessons that we mentioned before. One of them is just prioritizing people. There's so many times people can get in the middle of your relationship or people can come between you. It's to make sure that no one gets in between your relationship. The only person that should be in your relationship and up in your relationship is God. That's the only time that you can have three in a relationship. But when there are others that are trying to, for whatever reason, they're trying to interject themselves or trying to form a wedge between you, is to be careful of those things. So we have learned those lessons over the years, to be on the watch, be on the guard for people who will try to form a wedge or try to, for lack of a better word, to destroy our relationship.
And it can happen in a subtle way.
In very subtle ways.
It could be a close friend who seems to be a close friend, but they're demanding your time, or they have other motives and you're not aware of them. Very important. Yeah,
that's a lesson that we learned early, and we're still, on guard for that.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that I can think of.
What comes quickly to my mind is what I've learned is that my expectations, the psalmist writes, David wrote it in, I believe it's Psalm 5, my expectation is of you only, Lord. Your spouse, your partner cannot be your end all and be all. God wants to have that place. The Lord wants to have, that place has to be reserved for the Lord. There was times in my life where I expected him. My husband should do this. My husband should do that. Oh, you should know what I need. You should be able to read my mind. You should have the bathtub set for me. He can't read your mind. And neither can she. Like whatever romantic movie, has foiled that in our minds, we've got to get rid of it. My expectation, very importantly, is I cannot expect my partner, my husband, to meet every need in my life. It's impossible. He was not created to do that. The only person that was created to do that, it wasn't even created, but the only one that can do that is the Lord. There's no human being that can. So I learned that. I had to learn that. And that was really a Rhema revelation. The Lord said, you cannot expect your husband to meet your every need.
I can think of another one as well, in the sense that allowing the person to be themselves.
Very important.
So many times in marriage, you get one person who becomes domineering, and the other person just subsides, and their personality can't even exist because of this domineering person.
Yeah.
But you've got to allow, even though you're one, you are still individuals who have some goals and visions and dreams. And so, yes, we're working together, but at the same time, there's some skills and different things that the other person needs to develop. So encourage one another in those things, and allow each other to be themselves, and not dominate the other person so much that the other person feels like they don't even exist.
Yeah, and can I add to that? Allow them to enjoy the things that they want to enjoy. We're a bike family, so Wayne rides a motorcycle. And I remember when he wanted to get one, I was very against it. I was very against it for, a whole pile a lot of reasons. But then I had to stop and think, hold on a second. You know what? This guy doesn't stop you from buying the clothes that you want, or, the shoes that you want. Can he have something for himself? Allow the person to have the thing that, brings them joy or brings them laughter. It might look crazy to you. Maybe you don't like sci-fi. If he likes to watch sci-fi, let him watch sci-fi. Is it gonna kill you? No. He wanted a bike. He saw a bike. I said, you know what? You work hard. Knock yourself out. Guess what we did for our I forget. I don't know if it was our 30th wedding.
It was our 30th wedding ever.
We went to a motorcycle class on our wedding anniversary. We took a motorcycle training class together.
Aww.
On our anniversary. And I failed. He passed. But it wasn't by a big chunk. It was just, I wasn't driving fast enough. But, when he gets on his bike, guy's happy.
Yeah. He's free.
He's free. Yeah.
Free.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Let him be.
Yeah. I like that. And honestly, it's so important to allow the person that you're with to be themselves and to be able to accomplish the dreams that they want for themselves and what they've been called to do, and then supporting them, in it.
Yes.
That's so important, because a lot of people lose themselves. When they get married, and when you lose yourself, it's not good for the marriage either.
It's not.
It's really not.
You mentioned that word calling. It's so important because we are called together, yes, but she's got a calling in specific areas that I don't have, and vice versa. And one of the best things that you can do is to encourage that person in that, and let them just grow in that, and challenge them, even if they're slacking, challenge them to pull it up and get going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. I also like, Pat, what you said about the importance of knowing that your partner is not a mind reader, and that you have to tell the person what it is that you want. Because a lot of couples think they should know. I've been married for 20 years, 30 years. How do they not know? You still have to tell them, or you're going to just be frustrated when you don't get your needs met.
And you learn it sometimes you learn it the hard way, because if it happens 1, 2, 3 times and the person keeps saying, but I didn't know that's what you wanted.
Yeah.
Do you know how long it took for us to get something straight? And he would say, but you didn't tell me. And to me, it was like, well, again, because of things that I had seen and read or in the media or romance fiction or whatever, I thought by now, you should have studied me and known by that. Listen, if you don't like pepper sauce on your food, you have to say it plainly. Don't put pepper sauce on my food because I don't like it. Say it plain, write the vision, make it plain. But we are still human. We are, you can be spiritual, all heavenly minded and no earthly good. Just say it straight. I don't like chocolate ice cream. Don't buy it for me. Very practical example. My husband used to buy me certain clothing of a certain fabric. I'm a little bougie when it comes to fabric. So he had bought the shirt. He loved it. The color he thought was nice. I didn't like the fabric. It was 100% rayon. So I had to say, babe, don't buy this ever again, please. And then I had to tell my daughter and say, if you're going shopping with daddy, tell him not to buy this fabric. But I had to make it plain,
Yes.
or else I was faking it. I opened the present. I'm like, oh, it's so nice. And
Yeah.
I don't like the fabric.
Yeah. And that's so important for the other person to understand that you're just expressing how you feel and not be offended by it.
Right. It's not about you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds like you guys do a lot of goal setting.
We used to do a lot of it. We used to do that religiously on our anniversary. We have kind of we're coming back to it more. We've set our individual goals. We now that the kids are gone, we've kind of refreshed and we're re-strengthening that so that we're on the same plane.
We have. I mean, when you're talking about even putting out a budget on paper, I mean, we've done that.
Yes.
There's some goals that we have towards us, whether it be financially, whether it be socially, stuff like that.
Yes.
That we do have.
Yes.
And the main thing is to just keep at it, because sometimes you put the goal out there, but you get busy with life, and sometimes you can kind of meander, but you always have to keep each other accountable and say, okay, that's our goal. We can't get sidetracked.
Yes, because there's always something to try to take you off track.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Big time.
And there has to be one that pulls you back and says, hey babe, if we're trying to reach this goal, even especially if it seems far out, like it might seem 4 or 5 years out, there has to be one that says, hey, don't forget, this is our goal, and we don't want to get sidetracked.
I like
which
that.
he's really good at.
Okay. So, what advice would you give other couples, whether they're just starting a new relationship or they've been married for a while and they're struggling? What advice would you give them?
I would say right now, as I think about that, I would say pray together. You're just starting out right now. Pray together. Remember when we first started out together, that was one of the things that kept us, was just being able to pray together and be on guard for each other, protecting each other from so many different things. I mean, there are things that she'll notice that I won't even have a clue, or vice versa, things that I'll notice that sometimes she's not quite aware of. But as you're there to protect each other, to guide one another, and to be able to submit to each other, the scripture talks about submitting to one another. You hear the old adage, well, she must submit to me, I'm the man of the house. And you hear that so many times. And that God has called us to lead, yes, but he wants us to be able to submit to one another in the fear of God and hold each other straight. Accountable and straight. So those are some of the things.
I would say talk about everything. Don't underestimate. Just talk about everything. From what underwear do you like? What fabric do you like? Do you like instant coffee, or do you like French press? Do you like coffee, period? Talk about everything and renew the commitment. If you're just starting out in a relationship, what is the commitment? Are we friends? Are we boyfriend and girlfriend? Are we headed to marriage? If we're headed, what is this commitment based on? If you've been married for a long time, renew the commitment, and don't be afraid to say, is there anything that I'm doing that really annoys you? That's where that honest communication comes in. And even if you've been married for a long time and maybe 10 years in, you've been afraid, because you'll be surprised. There are couples that are afraid. I was afraid to say this to you because I was afraid of your response. That is so scary and horrible, because you don't want your relationship to be ruled by fear or by assumptions. So talk about everything.
And that's so key, talking about everything, especially when you're married, because whether it be stuff like intimacy, and I know this is not the forum right now to get into all of that, but when you're married, a married couple, what do you like? As an intimate couple, what do you like? What do you don't like? What's some of the hang-ups that you had in the past and so many times couples go through their relationship and don't talk about some of those deep things that have affected them in so many different ways. So when she says talk about everything, it's important to talk about everything that affects you and how you can make the marriage better.
Yeah. I like that. The spiritual alignment you've mentioned throughout this episode is really important, and that's critical in a relationship. I like that you've emphasized that. And also safety.
Yes.
talking about being able to talk about anything. And you talked about the importance of being able to not be afraid. And so it's so important to have that safety in the relationship to be able to do so,
That's
so
safe
that you
space.
really can get to know one another. So
Mm.
thank you for sharing those
Yeah.
techniques.
Welcome. Yeah.
So one of the last things I'm going to ask you guys, what encouraging words do you give yourself or each other when things get tough?
Sometimes I look at her and I say, we're going to make it.
Yeah. Do you know, I was thinking that same thing.
Yeah.
Wow.
We'll just
You
look at
guys
each
are
other.
aligned.
We just say, we're going to make it. Dude, sometimes, it's tough or whether it's a financial situation or whether it's a physical situation or a painful situation.
Yeah.
Lately I've been going through some pains in my body and
In his
stuff.
body.
And she'll look at me and she go, you can do it. You're going to make it.
Bev, we've been through like I said, we have gone through all of our vows more than once. There have been times where it might have felt like it on the outside. It might have looked like it, like we weren't going to make it. But there's days where we've just looked at each other and things that it looks really bad, but we laugh. Keep the laughter up is extremely
That's
important
another
in your
one.
relationship.
Yeah, laugh.
Gotta laugh. Whether it's
Sense of humor. Oh
find
my
a
gosh.
movie to watch that you can laugh, let your hair down, be silly with each other. But we've looked at each other and we've said, you know what? We're going to make it, whether it be a job loss or a job change or frustration in ministry or, physically, we just continually remind each other, we're going to make it.
I can be the biggest goof sometimes.
Yes,
just do something goofy. I have 4 brothers, and we all can be so silly sometimes, and that has helped us quite a lot. Because you've had some tense moments where you've had to just be okay. You can't take yourself too seriously right here. You just gotta laugh, do something silly, make a funny face or something. That will help to lighten the mood a little bit.
Laughter is good medicine.
Yes,
Very
yes,
good.
it is.
Very good. Very
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for your wisdom, for your insight, for your vulnerability. Thank you for sharing your heart. And I can just see the amazing love that you guys have for each other. So I am grateful for you being here, both of you being here today.
Thank you. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
And it's to me, it's just great to reconnect with you and to be able to see and hear what you are doing and the influence that you're having on so many lives. And we thank God for you.
Yeah, we thank God for you. We're honored to be.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pat and Wayne, for your willingness to share your couple's story. Your unconditional love for each other shines through, and your compassion for other couples is truly remarkable. When so many marriages struggle to last, you remind us about the importance of prioritizing each other and being spiritually aligned to keep the relationship growing. Although you have made it to 35 years, I admire your continued commitment to grow as a couple to make your relationship even stronger. I know that this episode will give hope to new and seasoned couples alike. Continue to be a beacon of light to those who cross your path. I will leave you with 2 affirmations from my Love Talk card deck. The first is, I am significant to me, my loved ones, and God. And the second is, I am grateful for the people who choose to love and support me unconditionally. If you are in need of marriage counseling in Northern Virginia, please contact marriagehealingcenter.com. If you need to purchase the Love Talk Couples Connection cards or the Love Talk Affirmation cards, please visit yourlovetalk.com. Thank you for tuning into this episode today. This is Dr. Beverly from Your Love Talk. Blessings.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Your Love Talk. Remember, you're never alone in your struggles. Take the time to affirm yourself daily as an act of love to yourself. And know that this podcast is here to offer genuine support and guidance whenever you need it. For more insightful and transformative discussions, visit yourlovetalk.com to explore additional episodes. Take the next step forward with courage, knowing you can overcome any challenge. That's all for today. Until next time.